to the candy shop.
I taste just like candy.
Ask for Candy, 101 ways to make your love and your life sweeter. Who am I? I'm Candace, HarperLoveCoach.com, honey. And I teach and inspire audacious intimacy to powerful, professional, grown women who want real relationships and seductive singlehoods. And I always say that dating and relationships can be hard, but love is easy. And welcome all of you who are tuning in on your smart device, maybe on the TuneIn app, or maybe you're listening in the garden. You know, I love the garden. The garden is all about love at Armed Radio Global, but maybe you are here with me on Facebook, which is fabulous because that means that you can see me. I can't see you. I can see your name, but you can see me. And I see Lee, I see Drew, I see Rebecca. They're already here, my homies, my loves, my OGs. You know, when I get really, really wealthy from all this love coaching, it might take a while, but we're all going to go on a cruise to Greece. All of you who are like my original gangsters of Facebook, my original listeners of Ask for Candy, we're going to go on a cruise. It's going to be beautiful and luxurious. Anyway, if you want to call in and talk to me tonight, because we got so much, you know how, you know, I love having a partner. I love having a guest. That's always nice. I love having those conversations. But I also, you know, when it's just me, I come with like all kinds of information and I make it really juicy and full. I have so much tonight. And the hope is just that I can get to all of it. If I can't get to all of it, you know, I'll carry it over to the next, or I'll bring it back again. But I want you guys to be my guests tonight. That means if you are watching on Facebook right now, I want you to talk to me. I want you to interact. I'm going to give you some questions that are basically sort of a mind exercise. And if you're listening, if you're one of the people who are listening out on the TuneIn app or in the garden, you can call me at 1-800-508-5431. And so if you have comments or you have questions, or if you want to answer any of my questions that I'm going to pose to you guys, feel free to call me. That's what I'm here for, people. I see that Roy has come in, Michael has come in, Christine came in. What is up, everybody? I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy you're here. Now, if you are watching on Facebook, I just have to warn you, today I'm like a walking wardrobe malfunction. I don't know what's going on. Like, I have this thing with these like roll-up sleeves. I don't know what, I can't even really explain it. I don't usually buy things that have the like button tab where you like tab it up, button it, and then you're supposed to cuff your sleeve, I guess. But I bought this one and it just doesn't, like, it kind of cuffs, but it comes loose. So I'm going to have some wings. I promise I won't fly away. I'm here with you tonight. You know, I'm here to like talk. I'm here to have a conversation. So, you know, we won't worry about the clothing. Anyway, I see Mary Beth just came in. Angela just came in. What is up, my ladies, my loves? I'm so glad that you're here. So tonight is all about the single status Q&A. And what I did last week is I sent to my entire newsletter list a survey with just a couple little questions in it, just to find out like where everybody's at. I wanted to kind of get a temperature of, you know, who's on my newsletter list for one thing. And then also, what does everybody want? Like what, you know, I'm always talking about what we create and creating things. Hi, Mary Beth. Mary Beth says hi on Facebook. I'm always talking about that, but like, you know, I wanted to get a real sense of what everybody wants. So I sent out this survey, and tonight what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what the stats are on the different, there were 3 main answers that I got, and there's different stats, and it's going to surprise you, I think, a little bit. But for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, let me just tell you a little bit. Like I said, I am Candace Harper Love Coach, CandaceHarperLoveCoach.com, and my talent is conversation. My passion is personal growth. And my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love lives. So yeah, I work mainly with women, but I want men to have their best possible love life too. I want us all to be happy and in love or out of love or, you know, whatever. I want us to be happy. And so that's why this is a conversation. I'm not here to like hand down a bunch of rules. I'm not a tips and tricks kind of guru, because I think everybody is an individual and everybody has their individual way of navigating their world, navigating their love life, navigating their relationship with themselves. Michael says, hey, on Facebook. What's up, Michael? So, we all have our different backgrounds that we come from and our different needs. And so I really like to, kind of get to the heart of our humanity, as opposed to like, what's the right thing to text a guy after you've had sex with him? And those things are great. Like, it's fun stuff, but it's not sustainable. It's not the kind of thing that like will have you having a happy love life. Those tips and tricks teach you how to sort of manipulate moments where you kind of get a little satisfaction and then you go right back to whatever your insecurities are. So my whole thing here is like, let's face our insecurities. Let's get an awareness about what they are. Let's be okay with them. Let's end the story of shame and stop making things wrong and, being in a story of not being enough. Let's just like let all of that stuff go and just talk about what it is. Like, let's talk about what we're dealing with. Beth Rooney, who was my guest a couple weeks ago, she's on Facebook. She says, "Hey, girly." Hi, Beth. Hi, Anna. So I like all these amazing people. Amy came on. All these amazing people came on. So, like I said, we're going to go through the survey. I'm going to give you the 3 main answers that I got from my survey this week, from my newsletter. And if any of them resonate with you, I hope that you have a pen and paper, because if any of the answers resonate with you that, my newsletter people gave, what I want you to do is pay attention to the questions that I want you to ask yourself after you hear what those answers were. So that's going to be sort of the mental exercise of this podcast tonight. And it's going to be a little bit of coaching that you get to take with you, because, what coaching is about is getting you present to like how you can create in your life and, what the blind spots that we're not looking at, the things we don't generally look at as we walk through life, or if we're dealing with a problem, let's say with a significant other. We don't necessarily ask ourselves the right questions, but when you have a coach, you get someone to ask you the right questions, and that's what I'm here for. All right, so let's get started. Let's see some questions. Okay, so here's the first thing about the survey. I want to give you like what I came up with. The first and the most popular survey answer, obviously, I normally work with single women. So 60% of the people on my newsletter list are single, divorced, or never married. And they say that what they want is to be in a marriage or a committed relationship, and that the biggest challenge in doing that is meeting quality people, which I think is interesting, because I think that's what a lot of single people say, is that I just don't meet enough quality people. Like, where do I go? What do I do? How do I meet quality men, quality women? So here's the 2 things that I want to put out to the community. And this is for you guys who are watching on Facebook Live, and it's for anybody who's listening. The call-in number is 1-800-508, what is it, 5431? Yes, 5431. So, if something comes up for you when I put out these requests to the community, I want you to respond and let me know. This is a conversation, right? So if you are single and it resonates with you to want to be in a relationship, let me know in the comments if you feel like what is standing in your way is the lack of quality, whether it's lack of quality women, lack of quality men, whatever. Let me know in the comments, whether you feel like it's that, or you feel like you have another challenge. Maybe you don't, feel like you're good looking enough, or maybe you have some sort of emotional issue. Maybe you have an STD, which you don't have to say that. I mean, that's like a private thing. You don't have to like, put your private business on the public forum, but if you could say that it's a different reason, like I have a different reason for why I feel like it's difficult for me to actually go from being single to in a committed relationship. So I want to hear it from you. I want to hear feedback from you about what you think the reasoning is, what you think is going on for you. And if that it's not enough quality people resonates, then you can say that too. Like, I agree, there's not enough quality people to date where I live, and that's the way I see it. That's how I feel. Now, the other thing is, because I believe that there are good quality men out there, just like there's good quality women out there. And a lot of us have been divorced, or we're developing ourselves personally. But what I want to know from the Ask for Candy listeners also is, if you agree with me and you also believe that there are good quality people out there, what is your advice for my newsletter for people to find these people? Where do you think they should be looking? I know I have my own ideas for, where that's possible. And I have my own ideas for where I have met quality people in the past, and, will continue to do so. But I kind of want to hear what you guys have to say and what you guys are up to. Like, are you volunteering? Are you hanging out at the library, the grocery store? Like, what are you doing? Because, also we're talking about people of a mature age. And by mature, I just mean like over 35. If you're in your 20s, you're meeting hot people all the time, every day, I would imagine, if you're going out and you're social. And if you're not, that's okay too. You can still be in this conversation. But, we're sort of focusing on people over 35. Like, if you have an idea, if you are meeting people in some special place you go, feel free to also share that. Now, here is my input and what my answer is. If you are one of those people out there who's single and you want to be in a relationship and you feel like the biggest challenge to being in a relationship is that there are not quality people out there, my answer would be to, and what I teach my clients and my workshop attendees, is to get really a clear understanding of why you want a relationship. Hey, Anna. Anna says hi on Facebook. Hi, Anna. So I know that sounds so rudimentary, and it sounds like, duh, I want a relationship because I want a relationship. That's what it is. I'm a human being. But you know what? That's not so simple. Because I think that there's this assumption, especially in our culture, that everybody should just be coupled up, and that's what it's about. Like, we just do it because we do it. My parents were together, or my parents were together and divorced, but that's what people do. They just get together. But how often do we really think about like why we want to be in a relationship when we're single? How often do we really think about what result we're looking for, or what it is we're trying to create in a relationship? It's like, this sort of thing where it's like an unwritten, I'm supposed to just want to be in a relationship. And I think a lot of times, when we navigate that way, and most of the time we navigate that way, that's how we end up in one kind of, relationship after another that doesn't work, because we're not connected to anything. There's no skin in the game. It's like, I'm a human being, so I'm supposed to like bumblebee around and, bump genitals with this person and then the next person. And if that didn't work out, then I guess I got to find somebody else to bumblebee around with. So that's what I want. That's what I would say to someone. And that's what I say to my newsletter people, anyone that I was coaching, is let's first get clear about what we're trying to create. What is it that you want? What is it that you want about a relationship? What are you hoping that the payoff is going to be? Like, are you looking for stability? Are you looking for certainty? For some people, it's validation. Like, I feel like, I'm going to feel like a real woman once I get married and have a baby, or I'm going to fit into my family once I, get in a relationship, a committed relationship, and, have someone to take care of or someone to take care of me. What is it? What is that payoff that you think that is going to be the thing that comes with a relationship? And the moment that you can get clear about that, then you have an opportunity to just basically start creating it without that partner. So if I'm a single person and I say, okay, I want to be in a relationship, and this is a little bit of like law of attraction stuff, but I'm a big believer in you put your word on what you want, and behave as if it's already there. You already have it. You operate at a high vibration about it, and you just decide to start creating the things that you say that you want. And you just decide to start being the things that you say that you want. And if it's stability, if it's certainty, if it's support, if it's compassion, I want to be in a relationship because I want to have a romantic life of travel. All of those things you can start doing immediately. And the reason that I say to do that is because if you're focused on that, rather than focused on finding some perfect person, Mr. Right or Miss Right, who you sort of have formed in your head based on, whose rules, maybe what your parents think is good for you or what your family thinks is good for you. Like, if you're focused on trying to create or find that person, you're sort of beating your head up against the wall, because you're trying to look for this external thing to have what you want. You're trying to like manipulate the external, and that doesn't work. It doesn't work. You have to look into what you can control, and what you can control is your own experience. So the moment you start believing that you have it, and the moment you start being it and being in it, whatever it is, whatever is your, your end goal, your payoff, and just start making that part of your life, you can create stability and certainty with who you are and what you already have right now, you can create compassion and kindness and love and romance and, self-acceptance, all of those things, acceptance and support, all of those things can be created with who you are right now, and whoever you have around you as your core people, you can partner with them on that. Like, just start having it. Don't wait. Don't sit around thinking, once I find that perfect person, my life will begin, my love life will begin. Your love life starts now. And if you want to attract that, you have to be exactly what you want to attract. And I know that's like, such a trite thing that you always hear in the transformation world, but that's what it means to be it. It's like, generate it yourself. If it's financial stability, generate financial stability. Generate being, waking up happy every morning and feeling supported. Generate that. Offer that to someone else, someone else who's in your life. It doesn't have to be romantically offered, but if you are constantly creating that in your life, that is what you will attract. And before you know it, that perfect partner who aligns with all of that shows up. And you don't have to worry about whether there's good or bad men or women out there, or whether they're quality or not. You don't have to be focused on any of that, because that's just the mechanism. That's just the stuff that you can't control when you meet that person and when you attract that person. What you can control is yourself. I see Brandon and Shama joined. Hi, you guys. Brandon says hello. Shama says, so good to see you, beauty. It's so good to see you too, my love. I love my Facebook people, but I also love you people that are listening in on TuneIn. I love you that are in the garden. Feel free to call me. Anything I'm saying resonates. 1-800-508-5431. I say it so much, you'd think I would just remember it, and I always look at the paper. Whatever, we can't be perfect people. We don't need to be. We just have to be ourselves, right? So here are the questions that I want my single people who want to be in a relationship, who want to be married and want to be committed and feel like that's the holy grail. I want you guys to write down these questions and, write them in your journal, write them wherever you write your self-help stuff or your personal growth stuff. I want you to write it down, and I want you to really reflect on your answers and just, answer it for yourself. You can share it with me if you want to reach out and email me, askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. You're welcome to share it with me. But what I would say is definitely answer the questions for yourself. So here's question number 1. Am I focused on being being is the operative word, what I want to experience in my life, or am I attached to what I've decided the solution to fulfill me needs to be? So if I've decided that I'm only going to be fulfilled if I find this great person, this, perfect person that fits into my list, my requirements, I'm setting myself up for failure, because I'm attached to things that I cannot control. When I meet that person, how I meet that person, where I meet that person, you know what I'm saying? So ask yourself, what am I focused on? Am I focused on being, or am I focused on doing, finding, making it happen? Number 2, am I showing up in social settings as judgmental or closed off or guarded, and then expecting Mr. or Miss Wonderful to just break through my veneer? Because I can tell you, if you are walking around believing that there's no quality people out there, when you're in settings where you could possibly meet a quality person, whether you put on a facade of friendliness or not, deep down, your energy is going to come out like a low vibration energy of like, everybody kind of sucks and I'm kind of judgmental and I'm checking you out to see if you fit my criteria on a first meeting. Like, all that stuff is very obvious. And if you've ever met anyone who's like that, or you've met someone and your vibe was just like, I didn't really feel that person was that warm. That's what they were doing. I mean, we're very intuitive creatures, and whether we're willing to listen to it or not, we know when someone is in a space of judgment, or if they're just open to getting to know us and who we are. So ask yourself, am I showing up in social settings as judgmental, closed off, or guarded, and then expecting the right person to break through my veneer? Just a question. And even if the answer is yes, there's nothing wrong. It's just we do what we know to do. And that's the point of these questions, is to kind of break us out of habits that don't work, right? And then the third question is, do I go on dates already ready to be disappointed? Now, this is a hard one because, if those of us who've dated a few different people, had a few different relationships that didn't work out, it is very difficult to stay in a space of, feeling positive and, thinking it's going to be great this time or this is going to be the one. But that's where you balance it. It's like this attachment to each date being the one and having this expectation is what caused all the disappointment in the first place, right? We kind of set ourselves up for disappointment when we have such high expectation, or that we think that things have to go a certain way and then they don't, and we get very angry about that. So the idea here is to, like, in your dating life, clean the slate and just start fresh. And don't go on dates with this high expectation, but also don't be setting yourself up to be disappointed either. It's like, just be in the moment that you're in with anybody that you meet, anybody that you go out with, and just be creating the things that you want to create. If fun and compassion and closeness and intimacy are the things that you want to create that with the person in front of you. If you, whether you feel some great chemistry with them or not, just enjoy yourself. It's okay. Because even if you enjoy yourself and they start to like you and you don't really like them, okay, there might be the awkwardness of, then having to extract yourself from it, or at some point tell them you're not interested. But grow up. We're adults here. Like, it's okay. If you're not interested and you reject them, you're doing them a favor, and vice versa. So the idea here is to just be present. Don't set yourself up with all of this expectation, and don't set yourself up with, bringing your baggage of disappointment, because then you'll definitely create more disappointment. So that's the third question. Do I go on dates already ready to be disappointed, focusing on what's wrong with people I date and ready to sabotage? So put that in your journal, write that on your piece of paper. I just want you to reflect on that question and just be honest with yourself. Nobody's grading you or judging you. If it's the truth, it's the truth. I've done it many times myself. In my pockets of singlehood, I definitely have been someone who has judged people, who has been ready to be disappointed, who came with my list of requirements, and if they didn't meet them, had some issues with that. I've been there. So trust me, I'm not coming from a place of like, oh, you're wrong if you're doing it. This is just, how do we create something new? How do we have a better experience, right? So now here's the other side, and the other three questions I want my single people to write down. Do I bring the open, generous, kind, compassionate, confident, insert your own, whatever the energy is that you want to bring and that you would want in a partner? Like, am I showing up with it? Just ask yourself. I'm not saying whether you are or not. I don't know you. What's Mary Beth say? I think some men have certain insecurities that they need to address before they could be in a relationship with a woman. Just my opinion. After leaving a 13-year relationship, I've been single for about 7 years, and boy, do I get the negative comments about wanting to remain single. I've always been guarded, single or not. Well, my beautiful Mary Beth. Now, for those of you listening, those of you who are on the TuneIn app or in the garden or on Facebook, I've known Mary Beth since 5th grade. That's the great thing about Facebook, is we get to have these connections. And I love this, what you have said, Mary Beth, because I think it's absolutely true. Some men have certain insecurities that they need to address before they could be in a relationship with a woman. Just my opinion. Now, I agree. And I think that that's true of all of us. Like, I mean, I think it's what it is that we're in this sort of space, I think a lot of times, where it's like, I got to work on myself. I got to improve myself. I got to make myself better in order to get into a relationship. When really what it is I just got to get aware of what my crap is. Like, just be aware of it and not lead my life by it. Like, not let it run the show, not let it run me. So I know I have certain insecurities. I know I have, someone might have abandonment issues, or, for me, it was always like I hated to be criticized. And, that came from my own childhood, my own issues and stuff like that. And when I let that run the show, then it got in the way of being able to have any kind of relationship. And I see you're saying, after leaving a 13-year relationship, I've been single for about 7 years, and boy, do I get the negative comments about wanting to remain single. I've always been guarded, single or not. So Mary Beth, I mean, honey, it really is about what you want. Like, if being single makes you happy. And I don't mean being single so that you can guard yourself from getting hurt, because that's one thing. And it's not wrong, but you got to be willing to say, this is what I'm doing. I'm single because I don't want to get hurt. And in doing that, are you keeping yourself from being able to have a great relationship? Because just because we've been hurt, and especially at our age, we've all been hurt, that doesn't mean that there's not some great possibility out there for us. But the way that we cut off that possibility is by assuming that what happens in the future is going to be just like what happened in the past. So ain't nothing wrong with being single. And if you're happy with it, that is fantastic. Like, you don't even need to care about the negative comments, because what other people think about you is none of your business. But it's just the question to ask is, am I single because I'm trying to protect myself? Or am I single because what I really love is being single? And if I'm guarded, single or not, how have I contributed to not having like a 100% fully self-expressed, loving, fantastic relationship? Just some questions for the self. That's what we do. We question ourselves. What does Lee Schultz have to say? It is hard for people to open up. I agree. My current friend is guarded and struggles with accepting a man who is secure and emotionally expressive. Oh, that's interesting, Lee. And I love that you are enough in your own awareness that you're paying attention to this sort of thing. And I honestly think the fine line that we walk when we can recognize something in another person. I have a mentor who I love and adore. She always says, if you can spot it, you got it. So, and that's not to say that what you're saying is true of you. Maybe you are completely open, but there's some reason that you recognize this in her. Recognize that she's guarded and struggling with accepting a man who is secure and emotionally expressive. There's some reason why you attracted her, and there's some reason why you recognize this in her. And I would say, like I would say to any woman that I would be coaching, and it's true of men too, we always have to look inward when we see something about the person that we're dealing with that doesn't work for us. Look inward and then be willing to communicate and have a conversation about it. Like, I feel, I perceive, be willing to admit I'm perceiving it. I could be completely wrong. Is this what's really going on with you? Are you feeling guarded? Are you struggling with accepting a man who is secure and emotionally expressive? Because I feel like I'm a secure man who's emotionally expressive. Do you struggle with accepting me? Like, before you assume and before you analyze, definitely ask the questions and just open up the conversation, because all of this stuff can always be worked out in a conversation. Yeah, I love it. I love that you guys are participating and getting in it. So that's that. Oh, wait, no, we have one more question that I want the single people to write down. Oh, two more questions. Do I focus on what's working and what's really great and sustainable about other people? Like, when I meet new people and I'm getting to know new people, am I focusing on the good things about them? Or am I looking for everything that's wrong with them and why it won't work? And how they sound like someone else I knew, or look like someone else I knew, or have a mannerism that reminds me of, someone in my childhood who I didn't get along with. Like, what am I focusing on? Am I looking at what works? That's the question to ask yourself as a single person. And then the last question, what is my inner dialogue with myself? So I can tell you the story is often, I'm not good enough. And everybody has their different ways of saying I'm not good enough. Whether it's like, I'm, always trying to be perfect. That's not, you didn't do that right. Do it again. Whatever. That's the voices that we take on from our childhood. Or I could never do that because I'm not skilled at such and such. If you have a list of things I could never do because I'm not, this is the way I am, and I'm stuck in my ways, then like you're in the story of I'm not enough. If you don't see yourself as endless possibilities and capable of doing practically whatever it is that you want to do, then you're in a story of not enough. So the question to ask yourself is like, what is my inner dialogue? Because trust me, if your inner dialogue is harsh and it's the story of not enough, then there's not going to be anybody you meet that you're going to consider quality enough. No one else is ever going to be good enough either. And that's it for the single people. But now we got to move on to the juicy people. I call them the juicy people because I find this, I always believe that when it comes to, let's say you put relationship, love life on a scale, right, of what people want. So this is not good or bad. You are where you are whenever you're there, and that's just it. But if you, the scale of what people want, most people want obviously a fantastic, happy, beautiful relationship. Like if you were to take a poll of, all people in the world, probably a good, 97% of people would say, I want to be in a relationship. I want it to be connected. I want to feel loved and supported. It's all the way up here. And then way down at the bottom is like in a relation, believe it or not, it's not single. Single is, somewhere in the middle here. It's in a relationship that is shitty. Like that, nobody wants that, right? Like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel. And it doesn't mean that you're wrong, because you're exactly where you need to be to learn exactly what you need to learn. But it's that place that nobody wants to be in, right? And the crazy thing is 20% of the people on my newsletter who responded to my survey are in a space of being married and wanting to be single, which that's why I call them the juicy people, because they got nowhere to go but up. And, if that means making the relationship they're in better, or getting out of that relationship and going through the transition that they need to go through in order to create something that does work for them, either way, it's like, they got a lot ahead of them. And I think that that's a fantastic place to be. I'm somebody who came from a terrible relationship, with someone he's a wonderful person. We had no business being together. But when I was in that relationship, I was on the scale, I was down here. Like nobody wants to be in that space. Nobody wants to be in an abusive situation. Nobody wants a crappy relationship. Everybody wants to be up here with, the great loving and connection, or even single somewhere in there with, just great self-love and a great life. That's where people want to be, right? So I see Joe Artizone and Joe Savino. The Joes have joined. And Jeanette. Hi, Jeanette LeBlanc. I'm glad you joined. So 20% of the people who answered the survey are married and looking to be single, honey. It's scandalous. It's scandalous. So here's my questions to the community, and especially those of you who are married, if you're willing to bust out and say anything. If you're married and you want to be single, I get it. Like you might not want to blow up your situation and let the whole world know. So you don't necessarily have to share. But if you're married and you've ever felt like you wanted to be single and maybe gotten past that, feel free to testify in the comments. And if you want to call 1-800-508-5431 and just talk a little bit about how you overcame wanting to be single in a relationship, or being in a marriage. Actually, the reason I say marriage as opposed to just in a relationship, not that one is, more superior than the other, but I feel like with marriage, all your legal stuff is all intertwined. Your finances are all intertwined. It's like, a lot of times there's kids involved. So the idea of being single is much more of a hurdle than when you're just partnering with somebody. And, you might be committed, you might be just as much in love, and it might hurt just as much if it doesn't work out. But I think that when you're married, there's just a whole lot more, or there can be a whole lot more details that have to work out. So testify if you've ever gone through this, especially if you decided to stay. And then the other thing I would say, married people in the tribe, what would you say to people who are ready to jump the fence? Like, what would be your advice for them if they're ready to just cut out? And, feel free to comment if you're on Facebook Live and you're married. What would be your bit of advice? Also, if you want to call in, 1-800-508-5431. And now, of course, I'm going to tell you my advice, because that's what I'm here for, honey. My input about this is that it always comes back to clarity. It always comes back to knowing what it is you are committed to and what you are trying to create. So the question that I would have for my married people who want to walk away, and it's similar to my single people, what exactly do you think will be the payoff of ending your marriage? Like what, obviously if somebody's beating you, the payoff would be not getting beaten anymore. And that's a pretty good payoff. But, for those of you who it's not working, the celebrity, Channing Tatum and Jenna Dewan, they just broke up. And I'm not usually one for celebrity gossip, but I noticed it on on my news thing that comes up. It's like the headlines. I know celebrity gossip is news, apparently. but whatever, like they just broke up. So obviously we don't know their private lives, but here's two people who are pretty wealthy and obviously have careers and things like that. And it didn't work out. So if you're just, in a relationship where it's two people and you just don't see a possibility for how it could work out, as opposed to like the obvious things, if you're afraid for your life or, someone has a really horrible addiction. What's Mary Beth saying? I see too many people stay in a bad relationship or bad marriage just because they need that validation. I hear that. Absolutely. I totally agree. I definitely think that people stay. I mean, for a lot of reasons. I think it's for the cultural reasons, it's status, it's, no one wants to be ashamed or embarrassed. They don't want the failure. I agree. They feel like it validates who they are. That's a lot of the reasons why people stay. But, I'm always curious to know, like, what it is people think if they manipulate the external and say, okay, I'm ending this relationship. I've decided that's the solution. What is it that you think that you're going into? Like, is there some image that you have of single life that now whatever problems that you have in that marriage are now going to, it's going to dissipate? Because there's a saying, and I don't know, I keep quoting AA for some reason, like AA sayings. I've been to an AA meeting before, a couple of them, not because I'm an alcoholic, I hardly ever drink, but, just because I think it's a good practice. But there is a saying in AA, wherever you go, there you are. So, I think a lot of times what people do when they're in a marriage and it's not working, they initially think the solution, it's not working, so I have to end it. Sometimes people will go through therapy and things like that, but then it's like, I'm working on this thing, I'm trying to force it, I'm trying to make it happen, it's not happening, so we got to get a divorce. And I think that's very common. But I don't think anybody pays attention to, what is it that you think is going to be the payoff to the divorce? Like, if you think that there's going to be some level of freedom, and I'm not saying this like there's not. I mean, obviously, like I said, everybody's situation is individual, but that's what we need to be present to. Like, what are we trying to have happen? What is the result we're trying to get? If the result we're trying to get is just communication and compassion and love and kindness, but we've decided that this person that we're with just can't give us that, have we really explored all of our options as far as that's concerned? Because if when we're unable to create that with someone, and I always go back to my last relationship, because in a lot of ways we were able to create some great things, but a lot of the great things that I wanted, we were not able to create together. And so that was the reason that we separated. But then I had to look at, like, well, why? I had to look at my part of it. Like, why wasn't I able to be a catalyst for those things? He has to look at his own part. Because if I go into the next relationship not willing to say, why wasn't I able to do that and how could I have done that, then I'm going to just bring the same thing to the next relationship, the inability to create what I want. So let's see, there's a myriad of possibilities for how your life could improve if you choose to be on your own, but there's also a myriad of possibilities for how things could improve if you choose to stay. And I'm not an advocate of like the moral issue of marriage. I know that if you're Catholic, you're not supposed to get a divorce. And I was raised Christian, and it's very frowned upon. A man finds a wife, it's a good thing. There is the whole moral issue about it. Let's take that out of it for right now, for this conversation. But what I think it is, even if you're in a job that you hate, if you're in a circumstance that's not working, the first place to look is inward. Not what do I have to change on the outside of me? It's how can I show up in a way that this is what I want it to be. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you could still be completely right on the money that it's not right for you. But if you're in alignment and you're willing to look within and take responsibility for how you show up, the things that aren't right for you just go away. And that's even true in a marriage. Like, if you're with someone and you have a lot of emotional conflict and you're not supporting each other well and it's not working out and you feel like you're bumping heads a whole lot, if both people or even one person is willing to just go inward and think, how am I showing up? What that causes is either we discover that we are or are not in alignment. And if we are, then we can work this out, because then we're actually taking responsibility for ourselves. Or if we're not, we can still take responsibility for ourselves, and it doesn't have to be some ugly thing where I'm blaming you for this and you're blaming me for that, and all it is blaming and shaming and fighting, and the kids are in the middle and all of that stuff. So that's why I sort of, when people come to me and they say they want to end a marriage, it's like, the gravity is not the moral issue. The gravity is, am I taking responsibility for who I am and how I'm showing up? Or am I just running away so that I can run into the next thing, bringing the same baggage and crap that I brought to this thing and experience basically the same thing all over again? I'm not saying that's what always happens, but that's what happens when we're not willing to take responsibility for how we show up, right? So I think, and this is just my opinion, you guys can chime in, tell me what you think. I think the only reason to walk away from a marriage, besides the obvious, like physical abuse and consistent emotional abuse, is if there's no alignment. Like if you want different things out of life, you don't have a shared vision, and you can't create one together. Like you don't see your lives as in any way compatible. What your long game is. I'm a big believer in having visions, having dreams, having goals. If you don't see any alignment with that person, and for my last relationship, that alignment wasn't there. I mean, he got to a point where he could talk a good game, but it wasn't in the actions. So I think that's a reason to walk away from a relationship. There is no alignment. We don't see life the same way, in the sense that what we're trying to create is two completely different things. If you're with somebody who wants to go off and be a beach bum, which is perfectly respectable, if that's the life that you want to live, and run a cocktail shack at a beach resort or something like that, and you're somebody who wants to live in the city and work in a corporate office and bank a whole lot of money, and it's two completely different lifestyles, it's two completely different visions, and it's not going to be compatible. There's no alignment there. I mean, that's sort of like on the low end of importance, some of those things. But, in the long run, it's not. Because when one person wants something and doesn't feel like they can realize who they are and their purpose and what they want to be, and the other person gets to, that causes a lot of conflict. It causes addictions. It causes fights. It causes, feeling like the love is not there and feeling like you can't generate the love. So here are the questions. For my married people, for all my married people who are, have made the decision that they got to get out of their relationship, I want you to get out your pen and paper, and I want you to write down these questions. These aren't questions to convince you one way or the other. These are questions to get you in a mode of reflection. I just want you to think about what you're considering. I want you to think about what the possibilities would be if you stayed, what the possibilities would be if you left. Number one, am I focused on being what I want to experience in my marriage, or am I attached to what I've already decided is the solution? Somebody's calling. Hold on. Hello, welcome to Ask for Candy. Who's calling, please?
Hello, I'm Byron.
Hi, Byron. Hi, do you have a question for us? Are you listening? You're listening in. Where are you listening from?
I'm listening in from St. Louis, Missouri.
Awesome. Welcome, Byron. What's your question?
Well, I've been listening to you talk, and I read something really very interesting in the New York Times this past Sunday. There's a section in the style section called Modern Love.
Okay.
It is written by a woman who is not married. She was married, she's divorced, and she is single. Mm-hmm. And she dates married men. Oh. And one of the reasons that she dates married men is because they don't want anything more from her. They just want sex. Yeah. And that part of what she hears from them, at least in the men that she's had experience with, is that their marriages are fine. They don't want to break them up. Mm-hmm. They don't want to move on. But in the latter years of marriage, it is a sex breakdown which makes them move on to somebody else. Mm. And she has challenged them and said, don't you feel bad that you don't tell her what you're doing? And they said, no, we would never do that. Mm. That would ruin everything. It is simply a sexual outlet they're looking for. They see no reason to break up their marriages because of it, but because they're not getting that at home, they seek it elsewhere. And this particular woman who wrote the article in the New York Times was perfectly fine with that because she wants nothing more either.
Yeah, I got it. So what's your question about that? Did you want to just hear my feedback, or
do you think that approach is wrong on her part or on part of the married man? What is your feeling about that?
Well, I'll tell you this, and the conversation of like right and wrong for me, I think can be a disempowering conversation. So, I think that whatever her reasons are for setting up her life in this way, and a lot of times I think with women and men, when we set up our life to be strictly sexual or strictly monetary, it's because we're guarding ourselves from, a real human connection, like real intimacy. Because obviously when you're having sex with people who are committed to other people, and it's just about the sex, you're not really looking for like an intimate, purposeful connection. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the ability to recognize that that's what you're doing and know that there will likely be consequences to it. Because ultimately, if there are people involved, like the wives that are involved who are unaware of what's going on and not able to consent to what's happening and not able to consent to, vows being broken and the men that they're married to basically falling out of integrity with their word. I'm a big believer in, the karmic return of that. So, it's a choice that a lot of people make, but it can be a very risky choice because, there's a great balance to life. And, the reasons that we do what we do are one thing, but that doesn't release us from, the karmic fallout, if that makes any sense.
Do you date men only because you see the potential of something developing later, or do you also date because you just want to have some fun?
I definitely date for fun, and my thing is, especially now at this age and learning what I've learned, is that life is a series of moments. And so I do recognize potential in people, but I don't use that as any sort of, that's not like an indicator of whether I'm going to marry that person or anything like that. It's just a motivator to enjoy them even more, have more fun with them. And even though being in a committed relationship is something that I definitely see for myself, I'm open to the timing of that. And I'm also selective about what actions I choose to take in a relationship with someone, because if they're not really in alignment with that, then, I'm not going to put in the same amount of energy, but I'll still have fun in a moment. I just won't consent to anything that's out of alignment with what I want. Like I wouldn't sleep with a married man knowingly just because it doesn't align with what I want for myself.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm 37.
Okay.
And I'm single and I'm dating.
Okay.
And I find that what usually stops me from continuing and moving on is that at some point in the dating, I feel rushed by them.
You feel rushed to commit.
They all seem to be, no, I shouldn't say everybody, at least in my experience, they all seem to be pushing towards something.
Yes.
Date 1 is good. Date 2 is good. Date 3 is good. A month is good. 2 months is good. And I would say in my experience, in the 2 month is the mark, the period, in which things begin to get pushed. And once I feel the push is when I start to think about moving on.
I get it. I totally get it. And I think that's a pretty common thing because, women, it's like biologically we have our clock and our chemistry and we're trying to rush and we want to get there. And, even though we're having babies later and committing later, it's like it puts a little pressure on. Whereas men, it's like, I feel like, and I'm speaking generally, I think men are a little more, I think men date like, they shop for fruit. It's like, squeeze a couple, see which one is ripe and choose it. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, I think that's a great way to date. What I would say, for your own dating experience is just be completely upfront. And if you feel like a woman is pushing, or you feel like she's pushing you faster than you want to go, and you say that and she doesn't slow down, or it's a problem for her. If it's a problem for her, then let her go. Let her go.
I think it's so hard because there's so many factors that have to work.
Yeah.
There's physical attraction, of course, which is the first thing when you see somebody. And then you have to find out if you have similar things in common and if you are both on the same page with that. And then you kind of move forward from there. And it is such a tricky area to go through. And it's just hard. And it gets harder as you go on because there's so much personal information that's known these days. You can find out so much stuff, I guess, going on and Googling people and finding out stuff. It makes it even creepier.
Yeah. Well, listen, what I'll tell you, Byron, is you can definitely reach out. If you want to email me, we can continue this conversation because the next part that I'm going to talk about is one of the answers that was given in my survey is there's a lot of people who are married, engaged, or in relationships who are trying to next level. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, people in that situation, and that'll speak to the rushing. But, reach out because if you give me these topics, I'll talk about them more in later shows too, because this is so rich and juicy and there's so much to it, right? There's so much we could go into. Okay. Yeah. But thank you for calling.
I'll continue to listen.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Bye. Oh, we love Byron called in. This hour goes by so fast. It's already 8:54. I see Denise and Vanessa joined, Jose, Kimberly, my very own sister, Glenn, Peggy. I love you guys for joining on Facebook Live. Those of you who are listening on the TuneIn app and listening in the garden, I love you so much. Wow, this hour goes by so quickly because I didn't get a chance to finish the questions for people who are married and looking to be single. So am I focused on what I want to experience in my marriage, or am I attached to what I've already decided is the solution and what will fulfill my needs? Write that question down. Am I showing up in my marriage as judgmental, closed off, guarded, and then expecting my spouse to break through my veneer? I wish I could talk about these more right now, but we're so pressed for time. Do I deal with my spouse already ready to be disappointed, focusing on what's wrong with them, and expecting things to go downhill and ready to sabotage? Write that question down, reflect on it, put it in your journal. And then on the other side of it, do I bring open, generous, kind, compassionate, confident, loving, whatever your energy that you want to have in your ideal relationship? Am I generating it? Am I bringing it? Do I ever focus on what's working and what's really great and sustainable in my spouse? If I'm not focusing on those things and I'm focusing on everything that's wrong with them, of course there's going to be breakdown. Of course it's not going to be working. Of course it's going to feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. What is my inner dialogue with myself? This is the question I want everybody for every answer to answer for themselves. Is my story, I'm not good enough? And I talked about this earlier. Excuse me, too much talking. And, it's showing up in your marriage and it's teaching your spouse how to see you as not good enough too. I forgot to have my tea tonight and I'm rushing my last little 4 minutes. Okay, so the last one was 20% of the people are engaged or in a relationship and they're trying to push to the next level. I am a big believer in not pushing to the next level. Like, oh my gosh, like total coughing fit on the live show. If you have to cajole, manipulate, force, beg, push, or pull, then it's not sustainable. Unless that's what you want to do for the duration of the relationship. I mean, there's people who spend 60, 70 years together manipulating, pushing, pulling, trying to get somebody to engage with them, trying to get somebody to have sex with them, complaining about what's not there. Like, if you start out that way, you're engaged and you're trying to force the next level, let it go. And that doesn't mean end the relationship. That means let go of the pushing, let go of the trying to next level it, let go of the being so worried about where is this relationship going. It goes back to getting clear about what you want to create, and just be willing to communicate with that person. This is ultimately what I want. And then you stay in alignment with it for yourself. Like if they say, well, that's not what I want to give you, and that's not what I'm here for, and I'm not going to give you that, then you have to maybe make some hard decisions. But don't be in a space of like, and I did it for, I was in a relationship for over 10 years. And, the idea for most of those years is that we were going to get married. And I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And it just, you can sometimes get somebody to marry you that way. And a lot of people do. You spend the rest of your relationship pushing, and trying to get them engaged. Because if they don't choose it for themselves, you can't choose it for them, even if you see all kinds of potential. So your questions: am I focused on what I want to experience in my relationship? Or am I attached to what I've decided is already the solution? And am I attached to next leveling this relationship? Ask yourself that question, a little self-discovery. Am I showing up as manipulative, pushy, or controlling, and then expecting my partner to break through it and love me? And still, it corrodes love. Manipulation, control, pushing, it corrodes any love that a person can have for you. Do I deal with my partner already ready to be disappointed, focusing on what's missing, upset that they aren't giving me what I want, ready to sabotage? Ask yourself the question. Don't make yourself wrong. Just ask. Find out. Be in observance of it, if that's what's going on with me. Do I bring open, generous, kind, compassionate, confident, patient? I only have 40 seconds left. It's crazy. 30 seconds left. So, okay, look. I'm going to give you the 3 ways to make love and life sweeter. If you fit into any of the above categories, answer the questions for yourself in your journal and see what you come up with. Reach out to me by email, askforcandypodcast@gmail.com, or call someone you haven't talked to in a while and share what's on your mind after having listened to this podcast. I want you guys to get engaged with this conversation. I'm working on a program right now that handles all of this stuff. The structure is peace, purpose, and partnership. And that's what I teach. That's what I support. That's what I foster, so that we can all grow and have these amazing love lives. Because I know all this stuff I'm saying is so much easier said than done. And I want you guys to get to a place of like high level security. Bye, Armed Radio. Those of you who are still on Facebook, thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're tuned in. The people on Tuned In and the people on Armed Radio Global are gone because I try to fit it all in, and it's just, I still have so much I want to talk about, but I'm not going to keep this going because I want to make sure that when I talk about it again, that the people that were listening on Tune In and the people who are listening in the garden get a chance to hear it too. So I'm going to save it for another. I'm going to push it ahead. Angela, thank you, my love. Thank you for being here. I love you, Facebook people. A lot of you I know already and are already in my lives, but I really appreciate the support. I love you so much. And thank you for engaging in the conversation. And, as always, never forget that you're a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you aren't getting the love you need, just make more. And don't forget to ask for candy. All right. I love you, people. Take care of yourselves. Tune in. And I will see you next Monday. Thank you for being here. Love you.